What up, though? The Colorado Statesman newspaper, Denver, Colorado, Saturday, February 21st, 1914. The Colorado Statesman newspaper, Denver, Colorado, Saturday, February 21st, 1914. The title of the article is Negro Genius. We know there's no such thing as a Negro. This is a term placed on people by other people. This term was placed on your people, my people, our peoples, in the place that we term as America. Now, before words on paper, I have no idea what this soil portion was called. I only know what it was called by other people because they wrote it down, because other people after them wrote down what they said based on what somebody else said. So, when I speak of America, or the place that is termed the United States, this portion of this landmass or this soil portion, I'm speaking of us. Anything that got to do with this soil portion, it got to do with us. The most important label, the most important name is the name that your people called themselves and the name that they gave you because it means something. A lot of times people say our names is ghetto. I've heard this many times. I've heard this from people who look like you, who look like me, and also others. And make it seem like our names don't mean nothing. But then when some foreigner has one of your ancestors' names, that means that the name came from the foreigner and from the foreigner's peoples. But that's not true. Because think about it. When foreigners came here in waves in the 1800s, they've been coming since the late 1400s, but when they came in waves in the 1800s, they came from all manner of places and they spoke their own languages. So how is someone from the Czech Republic named James, named Leroy? See, they had to assimilate. Everybody assimilate to the place that they go to. And if they going indefinitely, they just visiting, if they just a tourist, they may stay on the outskirts. But if they going permanently, they gotta assimilate. The Colorado Statesman newspaper, 1914. Speaking of your people here, no such thing as a Negro. They talk about Negro, they talking about you. They talking about the American Indian, the only American it ever was, is, and will be. See, in 1828, in the Noah Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language, during that time, American was being used to describe the descendants of Europeans. In 1828, it was being used to describe the descendants of Europeans. So we have to think from how long before 1828 did you cease being the American? But it's okay, because your people called themselves something. Maybe they didn't. Why you need to call yourself something, right? If you know who you is, why would you need to call yourself something? Just like, why would you need to know how to read and write if you self-sufficient, if you take care of you and your people? Negro genius is yet almost entirely undeveloped, and because it is undeveloped, it is poorly recognized and but little appreciated. We are speaking of genius in its true form when we make this assertion and have no reference to the simple traits or characteristics which mark men as apt or unusually capable in usual lines. For of this latter class, the Negro has plenty. So it says, we are speaking of genius in its true form when we make this assertion and have no reference to the simple traits or characteristics which mark men as apt or unusually capable in usual lines. For of this latter class, the Negro has plenty, or the American Indian has plenty, or you and your people has plenty. But men of extraordinary force who develop conditions entirely of their own conception, or who accomplish works new or unusual in their scope, so that the world looks up to them and acknowledges them as inspired leaders or gifted teachers in matters of rare importance to the world. This is the kind of genius we are contemplating, for it is a genius of this character which measures the development of men and of races and of nations. It is personified in great sculptors and painters, great orators and statesmen, great scientists and educators, great mechanical constructionists and inventors, great moralists and teachers, great writers and poets. This kind of genius is manifestly present in the African character and the African nature. But as a modern force, it is entirely undeveloped. We have those who aspire and who perhaps have touched the hem of the garment of some immortal genius of the world. But we have but few who have written their names in the sky where the brilliant letters could not be erased. But genius, like other things, mortal and social, is not wholly independent in its growth. It rises out of the substratum of its environment and is the expression of the inherent power and character of the people with which it is identified. A people must be a live and growing people to give birth to and develop a genius. And the conception and the gift must grow out of the need. Perhaps Booker T. Washington, as a great organizer and director of educational forces, comes as near this mark of a genius as any Negro living. But his work has outspread racial environment, and the white philanthropist must be largely credited for what he has accomplished. Henry O. Tanner, the painter, is almost entirely the product of the white man's environment, and the Negro is given little credit for his accomplishments. And so it goes down the line of our notables. These facts lead us to wonder if we are really developing a Negro people in America, or whether we are merely adjusting that people to an environment which will not require a genius of dark complexion for some generations to come. But a repressive condition is not a natural condition. And out of the blank and uncertainty of the present day may arise the very star for which we are looking, groping now along misconceived lines of activity. The genius of the American Negro may be discerned by the close student of human nature, sometimes in the life of the sturdy pioneer settler who possesses of the undeveloped requisites of a brilliant promoter and might have been a statesman and a leader of men in another environment, sometimes in the checkered course of a magnetic but dissatisfied preacher who might have been a gifted scientist, sometimes in the inconceivable successes of an obscure journalist or businessman, director of great works. Sometimes in the peculiar traits and contrivances of an ignorant countryman who might have been an inventive or mechanical genius of great mark. That inherent genius is misapplied or continues dormant is due. That inherent genius is misapplied or continues dormant is due to repressive racial conditions not understood as yet, but which must dawn upon the Negro in the course of future years. Lincoln University, Pennsylvania. Ian Brabner Rare Americana, established 1995. This is from rareamericana.com. This is circa the 1900s Lincoln University graduation class photograph, America's first historically African-American university to grant degrees. And this is properly American University. There's no such thing as an African-American. America's first historically American university to grant degrees. America's first degree granting historically black college or university, HBCU, founded in 1854. And this is, they say, Lincoln University graduation class. This is I have this photo larger. It is forthcoming. Okay. Lincoln University, the 1900s, Lincoln University graduation class photograph. America's first degree granting historically black college or university, HBCU, founded in 1854. Founded in 1854. Okay. Now, we've been told the Emancipation Proclamation in the 1830s. We've been told slavery ended in the 1860, 1863. It became illegal, abolished in these type of things from 1830 to 1860s. 1860s, I guess it was abolished. But here we have America's first degree granting historically black college or university, HBCU, founded in 1854. So it was founded in 1854. That means that things were in the works that ran along the lines of scholarship amongst your people. Nobody took some shackles off their neck, wrist, and ankles and immediately put on a cap and gown. Okay? Don't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. That is not supposed to make sense. That's what you've gathered. That's what you've been programmed with. That's what you've been indoctrinated to believe. These are the thoughts that have been given to you. The original photograph shows a class of Lincoln University class graduates with longtime college president Reverend Isaac Norton Rendell. The group seated in front of Vail Memorial Hall, which was built in 1898. In 1965, Rendell was elected president of the Ashman Institute, which the following year after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln was renamed Lincoln University. Rendell was president for 41 years, establishing a rigorous curriculum and standards for the school. Many Lincoln alumni sent their children back to him because, as one said, "I wish my son to be in an institution where students are treated as if they were made in the image of God." Lincoln University in Chester County, Pennsylvania, traces its roots back to 1854 and is the United States' first degree granting historically black college or university, HBCU. It's important to note that it says is the United States, this is in Pennsylvania, United States first degree granting historically black college or university. And the United States were the United Colonies at one point. This is a picture of that graduating class. This has nothing to do with whether or what I think about, quote, education, end quote. Some of these brothers may be related to you. I'm not sure. Evening Star, Washington, District of Columbia newspaper, Monday, October 13th, 1862. Okay. We just saw that this Lincoln University traces its roots back to 1854. Okay. Traces its roots to 1854. And this the Evening Star, Washington, District of Columbia, Monday, October 13th, 1862. Evening Star newspaper, Washington, D.C., 1862. A bright Negro, Jerry Brooks, a smart little Negro, 13 years old, and as free as an eagle, went to Canterbury Saturday night to enjoy the performances. While the performances were growing interesting, Jerry turned himself into a watering pot and from the colored gallery sprinkled the white audience below. An outcry of "Pitch him over," "Hold till I get there," "Kill the dead nigger," attracted the police, who saved Jerry an awful thrashing by taking him to the 4th Ward station. Justice Walter fined him $5. So Jerry Brooks, a smart little Negro, 13 years old and as free as an eagle, went to Canterbury Saturday night to enjoy the performances. While the performances were growing interesting, Jerry turned himself into a water pot, or Jerry peed on the crowd below. Shorty 13, this is how your people is a problem. Always been a problem. This is 1862. Right? You talking about not too long ago where slavery was abolished. Was slavery even abolished in 1862? Was it 1863? If I'm not mistaken, well, the Emancipation Proclamation was what, 1835, in the 1830s or something like that. And so-called slavery was abolished in when? 1863 or something? Correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around that time, the mid 1800s. And you got Jerry Brooks, a smart, and this is what they calling him, a smart little Negro, 13 years old. And they say he is free as an eagle. went to Canterbury Saturday night. Now, do this sound like somebody who got post-traumatic slavery disorder? Shorty go in there. He's sitting in the colored gallery, for the engines, and he pee on the crowd. The police came, took him away, saved him from the crowd who wanted to get at him, took him to the 4th Ward station, and he was fined $5. 1862. St. Louis Globe Democrat, St. Louis, Missouri newspaper, Saturday, October 27th, 1866. St. Louis Globe Democrat, St. Louis, Missouri, Saturday, October 27, 1866. See, one of my points here for sharing this with you is that for some reason, people got this idea of our people during these particular times. And we just gonna go over a few things that happened during that time. Regular schmegular stories about during that time. Newspaper articles of what was going on. We know it's propaganda still, but some of the stories just talking about everyday stuff. But a lot of us, I had, and a lot of y'all got a certain mentality or idea about what was happening with your people during that time. All somebody got to do is say the word slave, and in your mind, the Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, romanticized, intimate relationship with the word slave and black and African come to your head. And everything else, you turn away from. You turn away from all things logical so that you can hold on to that particular thing that's been hammered in your head for so long. St. Louis Globe Democrat newspaper, St. Louis, Missouri, Saturday, October 27th, 1866. A noble Negro boy, 1866. This is how they're describing him. A noble Negro boy, or properly, a noble American Indian boy. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say American Indian, I want to go back to as right as it can be and see. I don't know who the boy's people are and what the boy's people called the boy and what the boy's people called themselves, just like I don't know what your people called themselves. And I'm working on finding out what my people called themselves. So until then, we're going to leave the whole Negro. We know the Negro, colored, mulatto, black, African American. We know that they talking about the people who from the very earliest times was called the American Indians. So this is who they speaking of, a noble American boy, a noble American Indian boy. The following incident in the fatal collision of the Niagara with the Post Boy on the Mississippi was related to me by an eyewitness. The two steamers struck, and the Niagara immediately careened and began to sink. This is a ship. The Niagara is a ship. The following incident in the fatal collision of the Niagara with the Post Boy on the Mississippi River was related to me by an eyewitness. The two steamers struck. 1867, steamer boats. The two steamers struck, and the Niagara immediately careened and began to sink. The wildest consternation was at once universal. Ladies rushed to and fro with piercing screams, imploring the men to help them, but no means seemed on hand. And each sought his individual rescue. So the men, the ships crashed. They were sinking. They began to sink. And the ladies were screaming for the men to help them. But no means seemed on hand, and each sought his individual rescue. The men was for self. They was all for self. They didn't care. The ladies was screaming. They was like, man, I got to save myself. At this fearful moment, a Negro boy, or properly an American Indian boy, one of the crew. Listen, a Negro boy, one of the crew, was seen quietly lashing a long and stout rope round his body, at the other end tying a stick of wood in its center. Instantly, with this apparatus, he threw himself into the river. Turning upon his back, the stick drifted to the rope's end, and calling upon two ladies who stood on the edge of the boat, one with a child in her arms, he urged them to spring and catch either end of the stick. Horror stricken, they hesitated. The Negro, or the American Negro, lay calmly on the waves and, in tones of confidence, told them it was their only hope, insisting that he would carry them safely to the shore. For another instant they hesitated, but gathering courage from his self-possession and realizing that it was their last moment, they took the leap, and both succeeded in grasping the stick, turning quickly to prevent their seizing him. The heroic fellow struck out with strong muscles for the land. The rapid current was well nigh resistless, but he wrestled manfully with his burden. The energy of despair kept them to their hold, and at length their feet touched the bottom. Both ladies with the clinging little one were saved. Many witnessed this feat. It exhibited not only a cool, unparalleled bravery from the brave, but was wholly disinterested, as both ladies were strangers. It should be added that the boy left his own trunk with his best clothing and $300 in money to sink with the wreck. Reverend J.W. Alvord. So the boy, as they say, this was a boy. He left his trunk, or his suitcase, with his best clothes in it and $300 to sink in the wreck to save those women and child. Did you know these things was happening with your people at that time? Did you know these was the things that was happening when some of your relatives was shorties? Western Rural and Livestock Weekly newspaper, Chicago, Illinois, Thursday, April 8th, 1897. Western Rural and Livestock Weekly, Chicago, Illinois, Thursday, April 8th, 1897. The teacher said, "Who can tell me where Solomon's temple was?" Smart little Negro boy said, "In the upper part of his face, just in front of his ear." The Brunswick News, Brunswick, Georgia, Wednesday, December 2nd, 1908. The Brunswick News, Brunswick, Georgia, Wednesday, December 2nd, 1908. A brave piece of work. Now, you know, wait. The Brunswick newspaper, Brunswick, Georgia, Wednesday, December 2nd, 1908. The title of the article, "A Brave Piece of Work." Could we be speaking of the Atlanta Braves? Who are the Atlanta Braves? I'm not talking sports. What is a Brave? A brave piece of work. Little Negro boy or little Atlanta Brave, right? A little American Indian boy stopped runaway horse yesterday afternoon. Now, you speak of cowboys, right? Where you think they came from? Understand something. The thing that made the person, the person, the male or female, a cowboy, a cowgirl, was things that was already in them and in they people before they was called that. Smell me? Stop thinking a thing starts to be or comes into existence because someone calls a thing what they call the thing. The thing already exists. The thing is what it is already. Shorty in the last article who rescued those two women, he didn't need to be called any of the things that they called him. Just like Shorty right here, the Atlanta Brave. He didn't need to be called brave before he finna do whatever it is that we finna read that he did. It was already in him. A brave piece of work. Little Negro boy or little Atlanta Brave boy stopped runaway horse yesterday afternoon. A small Negro boy whose name could not be ascertained should be awarded a Carnegie Medal for bravery. The boy, in an act he accomplished yesterday afternoon, either cared nothing for serious injury or failed to realize the danger he was placing himself in. A horse belonging to F.E. Twitty, such and such, frightened on Gloucester Street down to the intersection of Newcastle at a breakneck speed, narrowly missing several telegraph poles. So it was a horse on the loose. He had people frightened. The horse was frightened on Gloucester Street. And I guess he was running down the intersection of Newcastle at a breakneck speed, narrowly missing several telegraph poles. The horse turned into Newcastle and continued in the direction of the Oglethorpe at a rapid rate. A small Negro boy, or properly what we've ascertained, a small Atlanta Brave, right? Standing in front of a Bruce's drugstore, they call him a Negro boy, standing in front of Bruce's drugstore, seeing the runaway horse, made a dash for the buggy, caught it, jumped through the back, secured the reins, and stopped the horse before any damage was done. It was a nervy piece of work, to say the least of it, and the Negro probably saved the buggy and injury to the horse as he was headed up the street full speed. The Chicago Defender newspaper, Chicago, Illinois, Saturday, February 5th, 1910. The Chicago Defender, Chicago, Illinois newspaper, Chi-Town, Saturday, February 5th, 1910, 11-year-old in 7th grade. Little Miss Zenobia Taylor, this is 1910. Her name is Zenobia. So when you hear the name Zenobia, and you hear many people, no matter what name you hear that a sister got, when you hear these names, everybody always talking about the people names is ghetto, like God names is ghetto. But see, everything they got to do with us, people put under a microscope. But when they put it under the microscope and they break it down to its very last compound, they keep that to themselves. They don't tell you the truth about what they find. Just like a whole bunch of these places in this country are named after your people. Say, for instance, if your name Panola. If somebody in your family named Panola Road in Georgia, right? Panola in Alabama or Mississippi. Well, I forgot. Is it Mississippi? Mean cotton. So the names of these places is named after your people, but they call them ghetto. Little Miss Zenobia Taylor, 51 West, I think that's 24th Street, if I'm not mistaken. Possibly. It could be 24th Street or 84th Street. Miss Zenobia Taylor, Little Miss Zenobia Taylor, 51 West 24th Street or 84th Street, who has just entered her 7th year or 11th year, is making her classmates and teachers look in wonderment and amazement at her wonderful memory in scholarship and music. She, being so young, for 2 years she has been held back, fearing her studies would overtax her. But on examination was found that her brain is perfect normal and she sleeps well, and that there was nothing to fear. At the rate she has gone, if her parents continue with college, she will graduate at the ripe age of 19 years and finish high school at 15 years. A thing that's seldom done. Her musical is something wonderful. She, the old master, she's played, I guess she plays the old masters as well as she with her little brown doll babies, plays with her little brown doll babies and amuses herself with during her, I guess, downtime or home hours. All her neighbors I guess, are something and black, are calling and I guess celebrating or calling on her promotion. It's cut off. The text is cut off. So again, little Zenobia Taylor will graduate college at the ripe age of 19 and finish high school at 15. And they say her musical talent is something wonderful. They say she plays the old masters, and she also plays with her little brown doll babies. So they have little brown doll babies in 1910. And I'm pretty sure a brown person, a brown human, made those little brown doll babies. What do you make? What do I make? Okay, let's move on. The Gazette, Cedar Rapids, Iowa newspaper. The Gazette newspaper, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You thought nobody lived in Iowa? You thought it was just the place that you pass up when you taking a road trip and you just see fields of make-believe corn? The Gazette, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Well, let's dig into Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Tuesday, February 9th, 1926. Let's see what's happening in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Let's see what's popping. Southern woman transplants Negro folk songs to her northern home. This is just the Cedar Rapids newspaper. I don't know if they talking about Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but the Gazette newspaper, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Tuesday, February 9th, 1926. This is one of the stories that this newspaper is carrying today. Keokuk, February 9th. Transplanting Negro folk spirituals and dialect songs from their home. Dialect songs. You know how all of us from all different places around what is termed the United States, we all of us Americans, American Indians, the ones falsely called Negroes, blacks, coloreds, mulattoes, African Americans, Black Americans. All of us have different dialects, but we all understand one another. Transplanting Negro folk spirituals and dialect songs from their home in the South to the hearts of their audiences in the North has been the work of Miss Collingwood Tucker of Keokuk. Miss Tucker first sang her before the war songs of the Southern Negro many years ago before an audience of musicians who had convened in the spacious attic of one of Keokuk's famous old homes. And this is in 1926, and it says, Mrs. Tucker first sang her before the war songs of the Southern Negro many years ago before an audience of musicians who had convened. So many years ago from where we are could be in the late 1800s, who had convened in the spacious attic of one of Keokuk's famous old homes. So she sung before an audience of musicians in an attic, a spacious attic big enough to hold an audience of musicians in one of Keokuk's favorite homes. She had come here as a bride from her home in Tennessee, and she brought with her the songs which have been acclaimed, the folk songs of America. This is Mrs. Tucker. Mrs. Collingwood Tucker of Keokuk. Okay? Listen to this. Not Mrs. Collingwood Tucker of Kenya. Mrs. Collingwood Tucker of Keokuk. She came here as a bride from her home in Tennessee, and she brought with her the songs which have been acclaimed the folk songs of America. So the folk songs of America coming from this American woman, this American Indian woman who they called a Negro. Who first sang her folk songs before the war, her folk songs of the Southern Negro or Southern Indian many years ago before an audience of musicians who had convened in the spacious attic of one of Keokuk's famous old homes. She had come here as a bride from her home in Tennessee, and she brought with her the songs which have been acclaimed, the folk songs of America. Anything that came after that, she gave birth to. Stop taking. These people come here and take. They like something you do, take it. They like you, take you. From the modest beginning, Mrs. Tucker has sung her songs before thousands of persons. Each year she sings in the Church of St. Mark's in the Bowery, New York, among other places. Miss Tucker learned her Negro songs at their source. Mrs. Tucker, remember, the woman who brought with her the songs which have been acclaimed the folk songs of America. An American Indian woman. An American woman, the only American it ever was, is, and will be. Anything on this soil is ours. You can call it United States. You can call it America. You can call it the West. You can call it whatever you want to. You can put up whatever flag you want. You can say that the symbols on that flag, the symbology mean anything you want it to mean. But just know, if it's on this soil portion, okay, we sprouted from it. And it's us and we it. Okay? Don't forget that. Don't get caught up in the labels. Okay? Everybody came from somewhere else. We didn't. Let's shake it. Mrs. Tucker learned her Negro or American Indian or Indian. Mrs. Tucker learned her Negro songs at their source. Her black mammy sang her to sleep with lullabies that Miss Tucker now croons in the dialect of that Negro mammy or that American Indian mother. Her black mammy was the source of songs which have been acclaimed the folk songs of America. Everything here. You understand? Everything here. Anybody else claim it, they lying. New Pittsburgh Courier, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania newspaper, Saturday, June 14th, 1930. New Pittsburgh Courier, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Saturday, June 14th, 1930. It says, teachers, Miss Gertrude Howard, teacher of sewing at Simmons University, Louisville, Kentucky. The sister right here. I had to put this in there. I wanted to get a sister a shout out because she teaching. And from the looks of this sister, Miss Gertrude Howard, she teaching sewing at Simmons University, Louisville, Kentucky. She's teaching sewing to the sisters. You understand? Because contrary to popular belief, okay, our people made their own clothes. Our people made clothes for other people because our people, they were kind. They about it too, but they were also kind. You can be both. Miss Gertrude Howard, teacher of sewing at Simmons University, Louisville, Kentucky. Some might say, well, I want to learn computer science and this and that and the third. I want to learn psychology. Miss Gertrude Howard was teaching sewing. She was teaching you how to do something. She was teaching you one element of being self-sufficient, teaching you how to make stuff to wear instead of buying somebody else what somebody else sewing for you. You look at some things I noticed about Miss Gertrude Howard is her hair. See, her hair is properly moisturized. See, this when they're calling people in these articles and things like that, when they're calling people Negro or when they're calling people Indian or they're calling them Negro Indian or calling them Negro and failing to call them the Indian that they are, they basing it on things like this. They basing it on facial features, hair texture. Well, we look at Miss Gertrude Howard and what do you see when you see her hair? She don't got what you falsely call as an afro, which is really a natural. That's what it's called, a natural. It ain't no afro. It's a natural. She's showing you that our people hair is not all the same. But one thing that you can, when you look at her hair, Miss Gertrude has that Miss Gertrude hair is properly moisturized. See, this is why so many of y'all accept when somebody say that your hair nappy. Your hair just ain't moisturized. It's one of the effects of trees being cut down in mass since the 1800s, and all the moisture that used to remain under the canopy is now gone. This is where you get the weather extremes: super cold, super hot, because trees are being cut down every single day in mass. Thanks to your foreign friends. The Greenwood Commonwealth newspaper, Greenwood, Mississippi. Greenwood, Mississippi. The Greenwood Commonwealth newspaper, Greenwood, Mississippi, Thursday, August 7th, 1930. Negro boy or American Indian boy, 13, mechanical genius. 1930. So listen. All I ask right now is that you think for yourself. If this American boy, American Indian boy, who they calling a Negro boy, we know what they mean, man. They don't mean no African. This ain't got nothing to do with Africa. This ain't got nothing to do with nobody else but your people. Okay? Because you ain't going to come to a place that ain't got nothing. You going to come, if you going somewhere and you going to stay indefinitely, oh, that place got to have stuff. If this Negro boy or American Indian boy, like the last one in the other article, the Atlanta Brave, we in Greenwood Commonwealth, Greenwood, Mississippi. It say Negro boy 13. And this is 1930. Negro boy 13, mechanical genius. So you think that the Negro boy that's 13, a mechanical genius, what you think his father is then? What you think his grandfather was? What you think his great grandfather was? Huh? Do you think he is the first mechanical genius in his family? And why is they calling him a mechanical genius? Because perhaps he's doing something that the people who wrote this article never seen before done, or wasn't used to it being done, especially by a 13-year-old. What about his father? What about his sisters? What about his mother? What about his cousins, his uncles, aunties, grandparents, extended family? What kind of skills you think they brought to the table? Huh? The Greenwood Commonwealth newspaper, Greenwood, Mississippi, Thursday, August 7th, 1930. Negro boy or properly American Indian boy, 13, mechanical genius. A 13-year-old Negro boy at LaFleur displays an adaptability with tools that stamps him as possessing a genius for things mechanical. It say he displays an adaptability with tools that stamps him as possessing a genius for things mechanical. See that? It's a natural thing with him. You don't have to read a book to become a great artist or a great painter or a mechanical engineer or mechanical genius, or to be good with making clothes or with hunting or with fishing or with constructing homes or with barbecuing, right? Or with making dressing or cranberry sauce. McNeil Watt with a pocket knife and a pair of shears, has fashioned a Model A Ford car from tin cans and other scraps of metal that is complete in every particular. The car is about 12 inches long and is complete in every detail. See, you probably got some die-cast metal model cars for Christmas, right? Right? And you played with them, right? And the only thing you made on the car was a puddle of snot that came out your nose while you was playing with it. But Shorty McNeil Watt, with a pocket knife and a pair of shears, has fashioned a Model A Ford car from tin cans and other scraps of metal that is complete in every particular. The car is about 12 inches long and is complete in every detail: dashboard, lights, spare tires, wheels that turn, steering wheel, and engine with the cylinder heads. Now, if he can do this, do you think his grandfather didn't make cars? You think his grandfather didn't make cars? You think his father didn't make the engines? You think they didn't do this stuff? You think you think your people didn't do these things? It say the car is about 12 inches long and is complete in every detail: dashboard, lights, spare tires, wheels that turn, steering wheel, and engine with the cylinder heads. McNeil's car has only 3 cylinders, but he explains that he didn't have room for the 4th cylinder. The model car was seen by L.P. King and purchased from the little Negro boy. No doubt it was purchased and now is being leased to Hasbro or some shit, right? Is it Hot Wheels? Is Shorty people getting paid? Because they no doubt leasing it to Hot Wheels, right? Or to die-cast metal cars, something like that. Evansville Press, Evansville, Indiana, Sunday, November 30th, 1930. Evansville Press newspaper, Evansville, Indiana. Boy musical genius. Negro child has never had any lessons. Or American Indian child. And mind you, when I say American Indian, I'm speaking of the oldest term given to our people when they were first seen by foreigners, when they were earliest seen by foreigners. Now, mind you, they have also falsely called us many other things, but they knew us as Indians, American Indians, okay? Again, more importantly, anything on this soil portion is ours. Let me clear that up. It's not ours. We don't claim to own the planet. Anything on this soil comes from us. We are the soil. We come from this soil. We sprouted from this soil. Prove me wrong. If you want to get caught up in names and designations, do me a favor. You tell me what your people called themselves. That's the most important thing. Forget everything else, everything I've ever said in any show that I've done. The most important name is the name your people called themselves and the name they called you. Boy musical genius. Negro child has never had any lessons. He didn't need no lessons. The little brave didn't need no lessons. See? You don't need they done made you think that you need to read a book Who be they? Them foreigners that made you think you need to read a book to be smart. They made you think you gotta always provide the words of someone else in order to validate what you know to be true and what you naturally already know. How much stuff is happening like this today where Negro child has never had any lessons? I'm pretty sure it's happening quite a bit, but it's so much confusion that it gets silenced, that things like this get eclipsed. So I got to speak on it because we ain't going to settle for nothing but all the way. Boy musical genius. Evansville Press, Evansville, Indiana newspaper, Sunday, November 30th, 1930. Negro child, American Indian child has never had any lessons by United Press. Salem, Virginia, November 29th. A Virginia, is this a Virginia Indian? A musical prodigy in the person of a small Negro boy, Errol Grandy. 11-year-old son of Reverend Thomas L. Grandy, pastor of the Bethel African Methodist Church. Yep, African Methodist Church. One of the institutions that has we'll speak about those institutions at another time. One of those institutions that has perpetuated an agenda to separate us from such great things as we are reading right now. Boy musical genius, Negro child, American Indian child has never had any lessons. His father, Thomas L. Grandy, a reverend of the Bethel African Methodist Church, who's trying to usher in or play his part in an agenda. The boy is Errol Grandy, 11 years old, but it still don't take away from Errol's natural ability. Has astonished his family and friends with exhibitions of his talent at the piano. After a few preliminary tunes at his small piano, Errol will launch into the dreamy strains of the lost chord, following with a rendition of the minuet and other numbers as they are suggested, concluding with a composition of his own, which he calls Irish Potatoes. The boy's mother said he first played the piano when he was 2 years old, after he had heard a hymn in church during baptismal services. Errol's first piano recital was given in Norfolk when he was 5. He never has had musical lessons due to defective eyesight. Are they sure about defective eyesight? The Times Record newspaper, Brunswick, Maine. Brunswick, Georgia, Brunswick, Maine. New Brunswick in Canada. Indians in Canada. More American Indians in Canada. Look it up. The Times Record. Remember, from the top of Canada to the bottom of Argentina and all the islands. Americans. The Americas. All different types of engines. You got to talk to them people to see what they call themselves. The Times Record, Brunswick, Maine. The Times Record newspaper, Wednesday, October 21st, 1936. Smart little Negro or smart little American Indian, Miss Virginia Clark. What a fitting name for Virginia. Virginia Clark tells the story of a little Negro boy who entered an office and asked if he might be permitted to use the telephone. Consent being given, he dialed a number and when the response came, placed his mouth close to the transmitter and said, "Do you need a good boy to work for you?" Apparently satisfied with the reply, he hung up the receiver and smiled broadly. "Did they want a good boy?" asked the office clerk pleasantly. "No," he said. "No," said the lad. "Then why do you seem so happy?" He said, "That's because I was phoning my boss. He said that he already had a good boy." Richmond News Leader. That's a smart little no. American Indian, that is. Evening Report, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Monday, August 2nd, 1937. Evening Report, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Monday, August 2nd, 1937. Negro child is genius, or American Indian child is genius. New York, August 2nd. Philippa Duke Shaler. Philippa Duke Shaler, Harlem's child genius, looked for new musical world to conquer today as she celebrated her 6th birthday. Philippa Duke Shaler, Harlem's child genius, looked for new musical worlds to conquer today as she celebrated her 6th birthday. The Little Negro Girls repertoire, or the Little American Girls repertoire for the piano, now includes 30 compositions, original and classical. She broadcast and also is said to be unusually apt at geography and mathematics. Springfield Leader and Press newspaper, Springfield, Missouri. Sunday, April 24th, 1938. Springfield Leader and Press newspaper, Springfield, Missouri, 1938. Boy Wizard, now grown, returns as Negro genius, or American Indian genius. Walter I. Duck Majors, they call him Duck, holder of 24 invention patents, comes back at 57 to city he left 35 years ago with device to revolutionize heating business. All stolen from this gentleman. All stolen from the homie Duck. All stolen. Or maybe his family is still benefiting from Duck's 24 invention patents today. Now he is Walter L. Majors, holder of 24 patents on things he has invented, and an expert on gas generating oil burners. Listen. Everything that's needed to sustain life, to live an amazing quality of life, our people already had before foreigners came here. And guess what? We didn't even poison the water. We didn't need to poison the water in order to do it. We didn't need data centers, right? To do it, right? We didn't need TV. We didn't need books. They telling you about Walter L. Major, holder of 24 patents, but these things that he held patents for, he had the information in his head. He had the information in his head. It was natural for him. Now he is Walter L. Majors. He's Duck, holder of 24 patents on things he has invented, and an expert on gas generating oil burners. In fact, he has invented an oil burner which generates gas and which he expects to revolutionize to a certain extent the heating business. Apparently, others think so too, because he was invited to the Standard Oil Laboratory and to the Kelvinator Company experimental laboratory to demonstrate for other engineers what he has done. Big mistake. Because he was invited to the Standard Oil Laboratory. Big mistake. Who was running the Standard Oil Laboratory? Who is the owner of Standard Oil? To demonstrate for other engineers what he has done. This is where it gets sad. And a company is about to be formed to manufacture the device. What company is that? And does Duck's people still benefit from that? You ain't curious about that? Duck, 57 now. Duck Majors, as he likes his Springfield friends to call him, is 57 years old now. He don't look it. He is short and stocky and partially bald. He wears gold-rimmed spectacles and a dark blue suit, and talks as though to an audience when he gets on the subject of his oil generator. He is unusually modest, and he gives credit for all he has done to the white people who were good to him, and to divine providence, which he refers to as the master. He gives credit for all he has done to the white people who were good to him. Now, why wouldn't Duck give credit to his people, to his family, to his siblings, to his mother and father, to his uncles, to his cousins? He's modest, as they say, because he gives credit for all he has done to the white people. And what has he done? Does he give them credit for what's in his mind, or for how they've taken what's in his mind and allowed him to experience fame and notoriety for what he's done? And to divine providence, which he refers to as the master. He reminds his listeners that no matter how smart some of us become, there is always one a little smarter, the master. But in point of assistance rendered, he seems to place his white friends in Springfield and elsewhere in first place. And number one among these white friends is Jesse T. Kuhn. Head of an electrical company, in the rear of whose plant Majors is now demonstrating his invention to his friends. Kuhn, first employer. Kuhn gave Duck one of his first jobs, and recognized the fact that the young Negro, or the young American Indian, had something which looked like genius. That was back in the days when automobiles were first being heard of. Although he had gone to school only as far as the 6th grade, Majors had a natural faculty for things mechanical. He set to and built an automobile, the first automobile to be seen on the streets of Springfield. Duck set to, listen, Kuhn gave him one of his first jobs, okay? Gave Duck one of his first jobs. Duck only went to school as far as the 6th grade because who cares? What does that mean? No, it wasn't important. He was teaching the teachers. He had a natural faculty for things mechanical. He set to and built an automobile. Duck built an automobile, the first automobile to be seen on the streets of Springfield. Of course, it didn't look much like an automobile. Majors admits today it had a 1-cylinder engine, and the body, he says, looked like a tally-ho. It took him something like 8 hours, he says, with slight exaggeration, to drive from the square out to the National Boulevard, as it was then called, and back to the square again. Majors also holds the distinction of being the first person ever arrested for speeding in Springfield. He went sailing down Boonville Hill at the rate of 6 miles an hour. 6 miles an hour. A policeman stopped him and took him to headquarters, where it was discovered there was no ordinance against speeding, which stumped the judge temporarily. Finally, he decided to fine Majors $1 for the policeman's trouble and let it go at that. So, because the police, the blue skirts stopped him and arrested him for no reason, he had to pay him because the police stopped him for no reason. And wasted Duck time and his money. It was a good thing Coon recalls that there was a man like Duck in Springfield. He was about the only mechanic who really seemed to know what made automobiles tick. Duck was the only mechanic who knew what made automobiles tick. And he was kept pretty busy going out to save people who had tried to motor to Springfield and failed to arrive. The first thing Majors remembered tinkering with was coaster wagons. He built coaster wagons and sold them to the white boys. This is 1938. So Duck said the first thing he remembered building. Okay, so this ain't 1938 when he started first building coaster wagons. He started much earlier. He built coaster wagons and sold them to the white boys. Then the bicycle craze came along. He went into the bicycle repair business for a while and even built a few bicycles. Major seemed to be able to fix anything where others had failed. It was recalled that the old Met Bar had a newfangled cash register which got out of order. They didn't keep a man around to take care of people's cash registers in those days. So the bartenders tried to fix. When they failed, others took a try at it. Finally, they had the thing completely disassembled. So someone sent for Duck. He put it back together and it worked. With a disregard for the idea of failure, Majors left Springfield when he was 22 years old and went to St. Louis, where, astounding as it may seem, he started a correspondence school for aspiring automobile mechanics. All I knew was what I had learned myself, Duck says, but they seemed to like what I taught them. From the correspondence school, Majors and his wife drifted into the beauty parlor business. They had several beauty parlors in St. Louis, but Majors was more interested in machinery than he was in beauty. So he devoted himself to the mechanical side and invented a couple of hair dryers on which he now holds patents. I wonder if his people still hold those patents. Or which one of the hair dryers or which hair dryers in the beauty supply store leased these from Duck. Among other things upon which he holds patents is a reproducing machine which will print 3 colors with 1 revolution of the drum, a safety device for automobiles to prevent accidents from skidding, a pay. Wait a minute. Among other things upon which he holds patents is a reproducing machine which will print 3 colors with 1 revolution of the drum, a safety device for automobiles to prevent accidents from skidding, a pay-as-you-enter device for taxi cabs, and wait a minute, a pay-as-you-enter device for taxi cabs. Is Duck doing Lyft? And a high static machine for use on X-rays. He holds patents on 3/4 of the carburetors in use today. He holds patents in 1938 on 3/4 of the carburetors in use today. Much of his experimentation has been with carburetors, and his own car is equipped with the supercharger carburetor, which he designed and constructed. His interest now lies with the oil burner, which differs from the ordinary oil burner in that instead of burning oil directly, it first converts the oil into gas. It cuts the cost of oil 1/3, he claims, in addition to other advantages, such as that the gas can be piped from the generator to various parts of the house, like to the kitchen stove and the hot water heater. He even has designed a small transportable model, which can be taken to one's cabin over the weekend to provide heat and for cooking. Next to his oil burner, he has 2 favorite subjects upon which he loves to expound. The first is the promotion of a spirit of corporation. Wait. Here we go, man. Next to his oil burner, Duck has 2 favorite subjects upon which he loves to expound. The first is the promotion of a spirit of cooperation between the Negroes and the whites, or the American Indians and the foreigners, the immigrants, the settlers. And when he speaks before Negro students, as he often does, he addressed the students at Lincoln School several days ago. He reminds them that the assistance of the white people in Springfield who had confidence in him gave him his start. Oh, so the propaganda begins with Duck. Come on, Duck. I want my people to cooperate with the white people because no matter what they may think, we can't get along without them. What? Duck. You came up with all these things yourself, man. This stuff came natural to you, man. Homie, this stuff came natural to you, man. It's in your DNA. It's in the fabric of who you is, man. And you say, no matter what they may think, we can't get along without them. Duck, you responsible for building all these things going to fix everybody problems, and we can't get along without them, and they showed you that they couldn't get along without you. When I talk to the young people of my race, I tell them that if they will apply themselves as good citizens and cooperate with the white people, then when they think they've got something, they can go to their white friends and they will help them out. This is the beginning of the end. There is no doubt that all ducks, that all of it. I tell them that anytime they show they've got something that is superior, their white friends will push them just as they did me. No, not push them. Monetize them, duck. His other favorite topic is the beauties of the Ozarks. He bemoans the fact that Springfield doesn't make itself nationally known as the heart of the Ozarks. When he goes to other cities and tells them he is from Springfield, he says they ask him if he means Springfield, Illinois, or Ohio. When you fail to tell the world about this country, he declares, you are leaving diamonds and gold under your feet where they belong. The Daily Advocate, Greenville, Ohio, Tuesday, November 14th, 1939. The Daily Advocate newspaper, Greenville, Ohio, Tuesday, November 14th, 1939. Negro child shows genius in field of fashion design. American Indian child shows genius in field of fashion design. Akron, Ohio, November 14th, Sylvia Lyons. Wait a minute. Sylvia Lyons. I have lions in my family. I have to look into this. Sylvia Lyons. That rings a bell. That rings a bell. Sylvia Lyons, I don't know. I need to look, but I don't know what her people called themselves. They're saying Negro, but there's no such thing as a Negro. Sylvia Lyons is an American. She's an American Indian. She's an Indian. She's the only American it ever was, is, and will be. This soil portion, whatever her people call it or called it, that's what it is. That's who she is. Whatever her people called her, Sylvia Lyons, that's what's important. A little 5-year-old Negro girl, a little Indian girl with red hair, has shown evidence of genius in the field of fashion design, while other children of her age are no further along than the scrawl stage. Sylvia draws beautiful ladies in evening gowns. Sylvia is 5 years old, y'all. Sylvia Lyons is 5 years old. Okay. With her colored crayons and pencil, she sketches the features of her figures in perfect dimensions, and the ladies have the latest hairdos. Sylvia's mother is a maid, and her father is a WPA worker. Mrs. Lyons said, the little girl first showed her artistic ability at the age of 3 when she began to draw on brown paper sacks on the kitchen floor. Other neighborhood children admired her work and tried to copy, but failed. Sylvia spends her free time thumbing through old magazines, looking at pictures, and working over her drawings. Do the right thing.